about marma points today. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do, I'm going to sit back so you can see my arms. We're going to do some really simple movements just to wake up our arms. We'll do both at the same time. So take both arms out in front of you. You can be seated. Good morning, Fatima. Reach your hands out. We already did our hands and our wrists the other day, I know, but we'll go ahead and move those. Just close, make a soft fist, and open your hands. Very simple. And if you want to close your eyes, you can do that. So just notice how just moving your hands affects your arms all the way up, maybe even into the shoulders. Remember, when you're doing this, you want to keep your arm bones, your upper arm bones plugged in. So if I'm just reaching, if I go sideways, this is me reaching forward, but then I'm going to plug the arms in and soften the shoulders down. So I feel the support coming from my shoulder blades as my arms are extended. So that plugging in feeling. And just do a few more moving your fingers. And then we'll relax the fingers. And then we're just going to do flexion and extension for the wrists. So inhale, take the wrists up. And exhale, take them down. Keep the fingers soft and relaxed. Really simple. This is part of my, what I call the body prayer for the upper body. And it can be done, really easily in bed in the morning, wherever you want. I typically do one arm at a time, but we're just going to go through and wake these areas up. So as we're doing each area too, these are all marma points. So I actually did a recorded video explaining some of this with my hand and wrist therapy. So this is your Mani Bandha marma point, and it's really important with the physical health of your arms, but it also has a lot to do with your psychological health. So just moving your wrists and then relaxing your wrists, flip your palms up and come into your elbows. So visualize your elbows, both the front and the back. And now you're just going to exhale and bend your elbows and touch the tops of the shoulders. So I'll turn sideways for that one too. Inhale and extend. Like you're going to go give somebody a big hug and then exhale and touch. And just feeling that movement in and out. Taking your time. So elbows, I like to think of the elbows, and this is very true. They give us the opportunity to bring things to us and also push away what we don't want, right? So in that subtle body mode. Also a marma point. And then we'll relax the elbows. And then to do the shoulder rolls today, we're going to keep it fairly simple. I'll turn towards you again. You can place your hands on the tops of the shoulders. We will do our clock face. So you're going to go 12 o'clock, lift both shoulders. So lift them up as high as you can. Feel the side bodies get long. Take a few breaths there and then let them go. The 3 o'clock is back. So my hands are on my shoulders just to feel it. I'm not pushing them with my hands, but you're going to take the shoulders back. And one thing I watch for is that I'm not pulling my elbows back so much, but think of the shoulders. So if you are doing that, you can drop your arms down, move the shoulders back, hold for a few breaths. So you should feel your shoulder blades squeeze on your back. And then that's like we close the back door of the heart and then let it go. Next one is downward. So you'll feel a lengthening through the top of the shoulders and a shortening underneath the armpits. So you can still have your hands here or just let your arms rest, but feel that contraction underneath the arms. And then let go. And the last one is forward. So the pectoral muscles, the front of the collarbones will feel like they're tightening as you bring the head of the arm bone towards the collarbone. Your upper back will open up and let go. So let's do that one more time. Slow, lift all the way up. Feel your side bodies get long. The top of the shoulders will shorten. The neck will shorten. And release it. Take the shoulders back. So squeeze the shoulder blades towards the center of the spine. Feel your chest expand, your collarbones will smile. Let go. And then downward. You're going to get into those muscles in the sides of your body, tops of shoulder stretching, maybe even the neck. Let go, and then forward. So finding that end range of motion as we do each of these. Hi, Heather. Good morning. And then let go. Okay, so now that we found those 4 points, those clock face points, take it and smooth it out into a roll. And again, I'm trying to make sure it's really easy to do this and use our elbows to roll the shoulders. So try to keep the arms relaxed and isolate the movement from the shoulders, or think of initiating the movement from the shoulders. You can feel your collarbones, you feel the bones of your shoulders. So your collarbones, I call the brake struts in the front. your shoulder blades or your scapula in the back, very important. And then really it's just the bone of your arm, your humerus coming in. Those are the main bones of your shoulders. And just rolling those around. And then once you've found a few in one direction, just switch the direction of the circles. Check to see that your head is in line. So when we work with the arms and shoulders, the neck also comes into play. So we just want to make sure we're not forward heading it, right? So take the ponytail nose back a little bit, stack your ears on top of your shoulders as you're doing this. And one more roll. And then letting that go. All right, so we're gonna go into our first yin posture right away this morning. And I'm gonna move back away from you. And if you want a little extra padding, because this first one we're gonna be on our knees, please feel free to take a blanket. In fact, yin's nice to have a blanket anyhow, and put that on top of your mat, but you might just put it underneath your knees or your upper body. So that's what I'm actually gonna do, a half blanket. Make sure you got your props there today. So coming onto our knees, we call this one, oftentimes it's called puppy pose, but you're gonna take your arms out in front of you, and what I suggest is that take your hands a little bit wider than your shoulders. Usually that creates a little more space and comfort in the upper back, as opposed to hands narrow, but you can see what feels good for you. And you might even turn your hands out a little bit and take, I call them the smiles in the front here, these inner elbow creases, and turn them forward. So what you're doing is you're externally rotating your arm bones. I'll do that, looks kind of weird, right? Externally rotating your arm bones just a little bit. And then we're going to move in and out of this just a few times to see where our comfort level is. So as you exhale, think of bringing your heart down to the ground. So the other one we also call this in yin is Anahata Asana, and Anahata is your heart chakra. So we're exhaling and melting the heart down, and inhaling and coming back up, and exhaling and melting. And take your time. So you may not get your head all the way to the ground, and that's okay. So if you find you stop short of the ground, you know that when we go into the hold for the yin, you're gonna need some sort of support underneath your head. But we're just working our, kind of think of lifting your tailbone up. You can kind of scoop the low back out as you come down, and then lengthening from the fingers to the tailbone, and coming back up. Taking your time. So if you're feeling a lot of pinching in the tops of the shoulders, especially right around the ears, then I definitely say take your hands a little wider and see if you can turn those elbow creases forward. Because if we don't have the elbow creases forward and the hands are too narrow, what's going to happen is we're just going to end up bending our elbows out to the sides. We really want to try to keep that straight arm. In fact, as you come down, those elbow creases will probably naturally turn forward. Those arms will externally rotate. And then you can decide we're going to settle in. So if your head's not touching the ground, or even if you just want a little bit of extra padding, you can put something underneath your head. We're going to do our best to keep those arms extended. So some people will keep the hips right over the knees. That's more the true Anahata Asana, and you'll get into more of a back bend there. But for me, I kind of feel more comfortable because I'm focusing on the arms more, letting my hips come back behind my buttocks. So it's really up to you. It's almost more like a child's pose there. But what we're looking at doing is creating length from the fingertips to that tailbone. And in the Marma style, anytime our arms are overhead like that, we're also stimulating the heart and lung meridians. I'm gonna grab my timer. So you guys are settling in. This is our first yin posture. So settling in, and I'm gonna give you a couple of options once we're there. Let your head melt. You might gently rock your forehead into the ground. If there's too much discomfort, then you're of course welcome to bend your elbows. Some people like to even cross opposite hand to elbow and rest the forehead on the top arm. You could use your arms as a pillow. So that's one way to soften this. But if you can stay there, keep those arms extended. So initially, we were using our muscle to come in and out. And now that we're in the yin portion of our program, sorry, I'm finding my timer. In portion of our program, we really want to just release more. And rest and let the muscles relax. So muscles going into relaxation mode while I fix my pants. There we go. And we're trying to be still. If you want to distract yourself just a little bit, there's some options with the feet in this one. So the natural way the feet will probably go is tops of the feet to the floor. But if you want to stretch out your feet in this pose, you can tuck your toes under and press through your heels just a little bit and open up the soles of the feet. So just feeling that space from the fingertips all the way up and through your shoulders, and you're still and you're softening the muscles. One of the ways to soften the muscles is to begin to see yourself through your bones. And that's good for your bone health anyhow. Visualize your bones. The bones are the connection to the earth, right? They're stable and really more unchanging, although they do just like anything else. The cells in your body of your bones are always changing and regenerating, but more solid. And just feel your arm bones all the way up through the shoulder blades. And take a moment to pause at the shoulder blades and see if you can locate the center of your spine between your shoulder blades. So as I mentioned, that's what we call the back door of the heart. And take a few breaths into the back of the lungs, into the back door of the heart. See if you can get your back to move with your breath. Right between the shoulder blades. And now that we're there, we can locate two really important marma points. So if you can sense where your shoulder blades are, roughly at the upper tip of the shoulder blades, so closest to your head, you can picture that place. And that's called Amsapalaka marma. And it's really important for your upper lung health, among other things. So for me, when I do marma and yin, it's just a matter of imaging or experiencing these places in your body. It doesn't have to be an exact location. But notice that slight compression in the back side. You'll feel the expansion in the front side, in the shoulder area. And then if you take your gaze down your shoulder blades, so towards the tailbone, but still on the inner edges of the shoulder blades. So if you guys aren't moving, but if I'm going down, I'm going to right about the center of the shoulder blade. There's another marma point on either side, so there's two on either side called Brihata. And that is, we say that is the back door of the heart. That is the marma point for the back of the heart. And also very important in the middle and lower lobes of the lungs. So just connecting your breath chronically, feeling your breath in that area. And breathing. And we're focusing on the upper back, the space between the shoulder blades, because that helps to heal any sort of discomfort or wounds in the hands and arms and shoulders. And because we work with marma, it's not just physical, it's on the mental, emotional, and even the spiritual level. And we'll be here for about 10 more breaths. And then this last minute, if you want to change it up slightly, what you can do, just to get a little more stretch, and so the elbows, we've been extending through the elbows, that's Kupara marma. We can put a little compression in the elbows. Walk your elbows closer together, take your palms together, press your palms together and bend into the elbows and try to touch the thumbs towards the back of the neck. So physically when you do that, I'll come up so you can see, you'll feel a lot more stretching in the backs of the arms, maybe even under the armpits. But you're flexing or compressing the elbows, that Kupara marma, which are responsible for liver and spleen on either side. So your liver is in your right side, that's your right elbow. Your spleen is your left side, your left elbow. And we're just gently hugging those elbows in, but then relax. We'll take one more minute in this hand position if it works for you. You can let your buoyancy of your breath, feel how it slightly lifts your chest away from the ground on inhalation. And exhale, just let the heart melt. Heart melting pose, we often call this. You can feel your arms just framing out your head and your shoulders, the elbows holding your space, and letting the weight of the upper body just fall into those elbows. Little support from your forehead. And take about 5 more rounds of breath there. Pausing to just feel. Anytime you want, you can take your thumbs out from the back of the neck if they're there. So when we come out of these postures, we come out slowly with awareness. One part at a time, just as we came into it one step at a time, and come out one step at a time. Slowly lifting the head up. Take your time, pause wherever you need to. And so when we come out of the holding pattern of the yin poses, you can either be still. The next pose we're going to do is be on your back, so you could go right onto your back. Or if you need a little bit of movement, try again those shoulder rolls. Go back to what we started with and see if it feels a little different now. Maybe just your awareness, you have more sensation in your upper back, or you can really sense where your shoulder blades are. You feel more spacious through your collarbones. So we just sort of notice any changes and also what stays the same. So we're going to come down onto our back for this next one, for the next few. And we'll take feet to the floor, invite the back body onto the ground, just pausing for a moment. Letting the back rest. So we've changed positions, so you want to give the back, the brain a moment to just land and locate on your back. And then with this one, you can keep your knees bent and feet on the floor. If you're more comfortable extending your legs, please feel free to. We're going to do the arms again. So we're going to do what I call the cactus arms, and you're going to take your arms out to your sides to a T. So my thumbs are right at the height of my shoulders. Just pausing there, reaching out. And then we bend the elbows and take the wrists so they're right over the elbows. So my outer wrist crease is facing up towards the sky, and my hands are just floppy like a rag doll. So finding that 90-degree angle in the arms. We can actually do a little assessment with this one first. Just let your hands, so we're not going to force them down. Keep them in that 90-degree angle, so that, in other words, we don't want the hands to fall out to the sides. And just let the arms fall forward. So what you'll notice when you let the arms or the hands fall down toward your hips is the backs of the shoulders will lift off of the ground a little bit. They have to. And there might be a little bit of lifting in the front of the shoulder because your upper arm bone has to internally rotate to do that. And just let them drop. And notice how close your fingers are to the ground. Maybe one side is different than the other. That can be telling. Lift back up to center. And then we're just going to let the arm bones fall back towards the head. So the forearms will come down to the ground, the tops of the forearms. And in this case, your upper arm bones are externally rotating to get you there. Again, notice where your hands land. Do they touch the ground? Can you feel the coolness of the ground? Or maybe you have carpet underneath you, whatever it is. And then lifting back up. So just do that a few times, going the same directions. Can you allow your shoulder blades to lift up? And then come back, and then notice how the hands, as they fall towards your head, your shoulder blades will slightly press into the ground, or the tops of the shoulders will. So even though looking at it from the outside, it looks like the arms are moving, feel this from your shoulder blades as well, your back and your collarbones. And we're going to continue this. We're just going to alternate. So you're going to, if you want to put it into your breath, this can be breath-centered practice. You're going to exhale, let one hand fall down by your hip and the other one fall overhead. And then inhale as the effort, lift the hands back up to that starting point. Exhale, opposite hand down by your hip, other one overhead. Inhale to the starting point. So the gravity is the exhalation, and that's the ease. But can you notice if you get stuck, if that shoulder won't lift anymore? Can you let the two shoulders do opposite things? So one pressing into the ground, one shoulder blade, the other one lifting. The other thing that often happens is as you start to do this is your elbows will slide down towards your hips more. So you just want to check that. Keep those elbows up to the height of the shoulders. And then once we found the alternating, we're going to add the head to this because that's really good for, among other things, your neck, the trapezius muscles that run all the way through your back, through your neck. So as you exhale, turn your head towards your top hand. Just let your head roll without lifting up. Inhale, nose back towards the sky as your wrists are right over the elbows. Exhale, let the head roll towards the top hand. And just going back and forth with these. And see if your head can just roll easily without trying to lift it up. Keep the jaw relaxed and the brow. Notice the way that you've got one arm internally rotating and the other one externally rotating. The shoulders doing two different things. And then if it feels easy to gaze at that top hand, we just go both ways. So then begin to exhale and gaze towards the bottom hand. Come back to center. So just changing your gaze, do the opposite hand. The one that's down low by your hip. That's the freedom to make the same movement in different ways or just change the pattern slightly. Going nice and slow. Rest of the body is completely supported. And your wrists remain floppy and your hands relaxed. Think of moving the arms from the shoulder girdle. So define the shoulder girdle again. From the center of the sternum, you can even feel your sternal notch where your two collarbones come together, those brake struts, and all the way out to the edge of the arms. And then the back side, the center of your spine through the shoulder blades. Feel that whole area and how it's responding to the arms just flopping from side to side. And you can do a few more before we go into our yin posture. And with this next yin posture, I'm going to give you two very different options. I'm going to show you the more easeful one first, the way that I like to do this. So in yoga, we do a pose called Gomukhasana or cow face arms. And it's an interesting one. We'll stop for a moment because one arm is an internal rotation and the other one is an external rotation. And actually one is internal and hugging towards your body and adduction, and the other one is abduction away from your body. So we're going to take that into the cow face. So next time your left arm is down, you're going to keep that down and your right arm is overhead. And then all we need to do, for that I think it's easier now typically to bend your knees and place your feet on the floor, is to lift up your your left butt cheek and tuck your arm underneath. And you might just barely have it like right at your sacrum. You can put it in your lumbar spine. If you want to go deeper, we begin to walk the hand up the center of the spine so it's in the back of that heart door. Obviously, you want to spread your fingers out. So you'll notice the top of the shoulder will have to come off of the ground, and you're in that internal rotation of the arm. The upper arm, I'm going to turn towards you. So the right arm, we're doing just the opposite. We're going to take it and it's externally rotated, and you just tuck it in somewhere. It might go to the back of the neck, lifting your elbow. Some people have the ability to touch the fingers together. You're welcome to do that. Right hand might touch the left. So this is a version of cow face that I like to do for yin, because you're using the feeling sensation of the ground to hold your arms. And you can really feel the compression of your backside into your hands and arms. You're actually weight bearing into those arms. But if for any reason you don't like this version and you don't want to do it on the ground, and by the way, you can do whatever you want with your knees. Your knees could fall together. If you like Baddha Konasana, wherever, you can take your legs straight out again. But if you wanted to do this in the traditional seated version, oftentimes people show it with a strap. You can do, I prefer not to do a strap because I feel like people pull too much, but it would be that, so we're still in the internal rotation of the left arm and we're sliding it on the back, and we can slide it up towards the heart door. And then the right arm is externally rotated and we're dropping it down to the back of the neck. If your fingers come together, then you can use that as a gripping point. Don't have to. And we sit and do this. So this is definitely more powerful. You're actually creating a little resistance between the arms, but remembering that eventually we're wanting to relax the muscles. So we're going to be in this one for a few minutes. So find that space where you can either be seated and doing it, and check your neck, because especially if you're in the seated one, I find that people tend to do the turtle head and let the head come forward. You're going to want your neck in a good position, to rest the head on top of the neck, ears over the shoulders. But like I said, you can do this and take it down to the ground, and then it just becomes a lot easier to hold. I like the feeling of the hands in the back of the heart door, and you can think of those marma points once again, and the top of the shoulder blades and the middle of the shoulder blades that access your lungs and your heart. I'm just beginning to rest into this. Yin is typically a quieter practice. So if you find your brain gets a little bit squirrely, you can stay present in the sensations of your body. If there's too much discomfort, you can always change the posture, or maybe your body tells you to go deeper. But sometimes we don't want to be in the physical aspects of the pose, so you could just stay centered in your breath. Feel yourself breathing into that hand in the back of the heart door. And then there's the subtle body of sensing those marma points on your back. We're going to get into them in the front of the shoulders in a moment too. Still focusing on the back, elbows, wrists. And to define marma points, just in case your science brain wants a little bit more back, a little more understanding, is the marma points are really the points where physically we have a junction of muscles and bones and connective tissue oftentimes. So there's this coming together. And it's just like laying out a highway grid system. We have all of the nadis, what we call the energetic pathways through the body for prana, and it sort of mimics the nervous system. Supposedly 72,000, though I always wonder who counted them. And then those nadis come to these bigger roads. So, these little roads all come into the superhighways. So the marma points, there's we come to the places where the superhighways come together, and that's your marma points. So if you're in Wisconsin, we say the stop and go lights. There's stop and go lights. And just sensing those spaces in your body. If you're on the ground, check to see you're not holding the weight out of the hands and arms, because you're definitely putting some compression in. You might feel it in your wrist. I'm starting to feel it in my wrist. And seated, if you're in the seated position, we're there, we're hanging on, but not pulling too much at this point, just feeling like the arms and shoulders can rest. We'll be here for about 10 more breaths. And think of the way that your body parts do come together, bones and soft tissues, even all the water in your body. Yin invites us to connect to the earth and water elements in our body, that heaviness, the solidness. And when you're ready to release, so I'm going to go back down onto the floor, because if you're on the floor, the way we release out of that one is typically you can just take the right hand out, but to take the left hand out, you're going to need to roll onto your right side and then take that left hand out. And if you want, you can stay on the ground and roll your shoulders, or maybe they need a little stretching now. Sometimes the counter pose for that is just giving yourself a nice little hug, or just being still in that space. So we've got side 2 to do with that one. So if you're choosing to stay on the ground, please feel free to. I'll also show it seated. Side 2 would be just the opposite. So if we were in the cactus arms, your right arm is going to be overhead and your left arm will be down. Nope, sorry, did that backwards. Reverse, rewind. Right arm down by your hip and left arm overhead. I knew as soon as I did it because it felt like, no, you already did this, right? So then you're going to keep that right arm internally rotated, and sometimes our arms are different, right? So maybe one side, the hand will just barely tuck under the waistband. That's okay. That's why I like doing this on the floor. If you can get it higher, then go for it. So this is my grumpy shoulder, so I don't go quite as high. And then the left arm you can reach, it's externally rotated, and the hand comes somewhere around the head or the neck or the upper shoulder blades, just where your neck is comfortable though. And we can rest there. Or doing it as a seated posture, the right arm is still internally rotated, so the head of my arm bone comes forward, shoulder blades lifting off the ground if you're on the ground, and then this hand is reaching towards the back. This arm is externally rotated, and I'm reaching towards the middle of my back. And if you've got the clasp, you can go with the clasp. And starting the timer, finding your position. And this is a good one to notice. A lot of times we do feel some significant differences in the shoulders, especially if you've ever had any sort of rotator cuff injury. So not forcing ourselves into that, because a lot of times it can be years later and you know those tissues still are tight. They tend to hold trauma for a long time, so we're not pushing them into any uncomfortable position. We're just being in a space where we can breathe easily and feel calm. Feel your arm bones, whatever leg position you've chosen for yourself, if you're lying down or seated. It's not very often that we get to have our own hands on our backside, particularly in the back of the heart door. So that Amsapalaka Marma, you might even be touching it, and I know I am, and I can gently press my fingers into that space in the inner shoulder blades right at the top tips. Just saying hello to the back of the heart, upper lungs, and the lower hand too. Feeling, if you're lying down, you can feel the weight of your body just gently compressing that bottom hand and wrist. Notice the way the left shoulder blade presses into the ground and the right shoulder blade lifts away from the ground. You might even feel a little winging in your right shoulder blade. Gets a wing coming off your back. And we vow to remain still as best we can in yin. Always the exceptions being that if you're in too much discomfort, then change it, come out, back out. Or if your body invites you to go a little bit deeper into the posture. Something yin can help us too with is to understand that even when we're still, there is transition. So we might get caught up in some sort of uncomfortable feeling, but then watch it as it dissipates or dulls out. So being able to have that resilience to be present even when there is a little bit of discomfort. Also recognizing, though, that part of that is knowing that we feel safe and our breath is still relaxed and calm. So it's not just the level of sensation that we feel, that we judge the how far we want to be in the pose. It's also what we say to ourselves and how we're breathing. We'll be here for about 10 more breaths, whether you're on the floor or you're seated. Notice the places where, there might still be places where you've yet to relax, to let your bones hold you in this space. Let the ground hold you. And as with all poses, don't judge yourself. If you're feeling something, you're doing enough. You know, everybody's going to look different. If we could see each other, we have to accommodate these poses for our body. So coming out, if you're on your backside, you can typically just kind of slide that left hand out. But to take the right hand out, you want to roll onto your left side and then take it out. Oh, and then just let it go. So pause for a moment because we've got another round of somatic movement for the arms, which hopefully will feel really yummy. So, you know, a lot of teachers, you'll see yin-yang classes. So this is my version of yin and yang, because I don't know, to me, if I'm just done a nice quiet yin practice or a pose and I'm relaxed, it doesn't suit me to go into a down dog. Some people it does. It's like it's too much, but I like a little movement in between. So the somatics for me works well. But you can give me your feedback. Let me know what you think. So this next one, we're going to roll onto our right side first. And stop this. We're going to roll onto our right side. So you may want a blanket or something underneath your head. A little bit of padding. Please feel free to do that. And then you're going to bring your knees up so that your thigh bones are 90 degrees from your spine, and take your shin bones forward so that your shins are parallel to your spine or to the long edge of your mat or blanket, whatever you've got down there. And then that right arm can come forward, just relax it. And remember, when we're on the arm, we're not actually on the outer shoulder. You want to pull the arm forward a little bit so you're more on the shoulder blade. So you're not restricting that shoulder. And this one will be a rotation, but we're going to rotate from the shoulders. So this will be a nice opportunity to open up the pectoral region, which tends to be tight for a lot of people. And there's a reason for that. As part of that is the nervous system, is we're set to tighten the pectoral muscles when we have that fear response. So we start with the hand at the rib cage, and you're just spreading your fingers, and imagine that your arm is glued to your side. So we're not moving from the arm, we're going to move from the shoulder girdle. It's not elbow moving, the arm is completely relaxed. And as I breathe in, I can even imagine breathing into my left lung, and I'm going to begin to roll that left shoulder blade towards the ground. You might also feel this in your hip, by the way. As I come back, as I exhale, I'll just come back. And I'm going to inhale, roll, and exhale, come back. So right now we're probably getting more into the side body, but we just want to feel the way the shoulder blade can roll. Left shoulder blade towards the ground, and your head is just following along. Just let the head respond. And then if it feels okay for the arm, there's a couple different things you can try as you're doing this. The first one that I find a little more easeful is to take the hand to the base of the skull. And you're going to exhale. You can bring the elbow all the way down so you're feeling your shoulder blade stretch now. And then as you inhale, you can take that elbow down towards the floor and feel more stretch through your collarbone area and your armpit area. Exhale, come back. Don't be surprised though if you feel it more in your hip too, because we can't separate these areas really, right? We try to do movement in isolation, but it doesn't mean we're gonna feel it where we're intending to. We're going to feel it wherever our body needs to feel it. And then exhaling, and you're just rolling back and forth. Keep the head heavy. Watch that you're not lifting the neck in any way. Just kind of a nice soothing movement pattern so you can keep the hand at the base of the head. Another way to do it is to take your palms together, take your left arm long, and if it works for you, you can extend the arm. The only thing I'd say is just watch that the idea here is we're stretching the pectoral muscles, feeling the difference between stretching them and straining them. That head of the arm bone right in that shoulder socket right here is still comfortable, and then you could do it that way too. So arm extended. And letting your head follow your hand. I actually prefer hand behind the head. I find I get a little bit deeper stretch that way too. But you can explore. Doing a few more of these, just opening up. And then ultimately, we will land in this position and hold it. So we're in a rotation for the spine. Recognize that even though we're doing shoulders and arms, there's certainly a spinal rotation. So when we go into it, I'm going to turn towards you so you can see if there's an issue with, first of all, one of my hard and fast rules is that if your arm's extended and the shoulder's not on the floor, I wouldn't go there unless you support your arm. Because you don't want, if the shoulder blade's off the floor and the arm's extended, you're actually straining the front of the shoulder. So the better option would be to so that's going to be true too, right? If your hand's behind your head, you'd still need to, you could support the elbow if it's not on the ground, right? So that feels good for me. Otherwise, the really easy thing to do is go back to the first position with your hand on your belly and just slide the elbow out. And if the elbow's still not touching the floor, if you just want a little padding, you could put that blanket underneath the elbow. So what we have to understand is sometimes we think we're stretching, and what we're really doing is straining. And if this arm is out here, it's actually less likely that the muscles are going to relax in the pectoral region in the front of the shoulder, because they're staying contracted because they're protecting you. They feel strain in the joint. If they feel any sort of strain in the connective tissue, the muscles are going to engage. So you want to feel like the head of the arm bone right there is really, really relaxed. So supporting that arm, bending the elbow, wherever you need to be to find that place. And we'll be here for a few minutes. Excuse me. So getting into that space of shoulder, just letting your head turn. The other thing you may consider too is if your knees are in any way uncomfortable, you can put a blanket between your knees. Sometimes that's nice because the hips, if you're feeling a lot of pulling in your hips, I tend to bring a blanket in between my knees. It just eases that pulling in my low back and my hip a little bit. So shoulder blades on the ground, you can go with that. And just feel the rotation in your spine, but focus on the front of the chest too, right around that left collarbone. So around the left collarbone itself, there is a marma point. If you can sense right where your collarbone is and go right to about the middle of the collarbone, you could even take your left hand and palpate it. Take your fingertips, excuse me, right underneath the collarbone, about halfway down. And that's called apalapas, and it's right below that collarbone. It's really important for circulation. So in this position, you're getting that, just that little bit of tension. You're putting tension on that area in the body. But you could also come in with your fingers and just massage, gently massage right below that left collarbone halfway down. Sorry about the voice today. Excuse me. So we're just feeling that space around the collarbone and the left side. And then if we go all the way out to what we call the head of the arm bone, so the shoulder joint here itself, we have 2 more marma points. And one of them, I'll just talk about them together. Lohitaksha and Kakshadara are both in that area. And both of them are really important for circulation to the arm. Really important for that. And so again, you can just gently massage that area or just use your mind's awareness to come into that space right where you can feel it's almost like a river of soft tissue between the arm itself and the shoulder girdle. And you can go right into there. So this one particularly, Lohitaksha, and they're both right in there, is really important with if you have carpal tunnel syndrome or any sort of neuropathy down the arms. And we know that there's a lot of nerves that go right through this point, right? So again, that's the idea of marmas. It's places where different systems of our body come together. Nervous systems, musculoskeletal. And we can just focus on the front of the arm. Letting yourself relax and release. Just keep letting, as you breathe out, let that left shoulder blade fall to the ground. Don't push it, don't force it. Just easily feeling the weight of the left shoulder fall as you breathe out. And now you might focus more on breathing physically into your left lung, particularly the top of the left lung. And this is the space of your lovely heart. We also have our spleen on that side. We'll be here for about 10 more breaths. Maybe take a breath into the center of your chest and breathe in and visualize that breath going through both sides of your chest, through the collarbones and all the way out through the fingertips, through the palms of the hands, and take an exhalation. If your arm is extended, slide it back so that your arm is on your side body, and then slowly roll back onto your right side. So remember, coming out of the pose is part of the pose. We take our time. It might feel good to just come into a fetal curl for a moment and pause there. You could come onto your front or your back before we do the second side. So you decide, I'm going to turn towards you. And you can also decide, we will be doing some movement before we do the second side. If you want to be still and just feel the 2 sides of your arm. So it's nice perhaps to come into a more symmetrical, balanced position and see if you can feel that difference between the 2 sides of your shoulders. As much as it's important that when we're consciously aware of our bodies when we're in the pose, it's just as much or more in my mind when we come out, because that's when we have this opportunity to remap and feel. So do the 2 shoulders feel different? Does one feel more open and expressive or lighter or heavier? And we notice these things in our body. It's no different than when our somatic system tells us we're hot or we're cold, right? We have so much that we are able to read in our body that we just don't take the time, or we're always moving and taking so much information in from outside that it's hard to just focus on feeling the information that our body is giving us on the inside. So in this still position. And then we'll get ready to do the second side. So if you'd like a blanket or something underneath your head, keep that there. You're going to be on your left side this time. And take that left arm out slightly so we're not on the outer shoulder, outer arm bone. You're more resting on the shoulder blade. Head comfortable. Stack your knees together and draw your knees up so that your thighs are 90 degrees from your spine and your shins are parallel to the spine. If you did find that it felt good when you were resting in the pose to put the blanket between the knees, there's no reason you can't do that now when we're doing the movement. So you might even take it in there now if you'd like.
And then we start with the right hand on the ribs. And though this may not be a great image, I imagine that my arm is like in a sling, and not in a sling and oh no, I hurt it. It's a sling because it's protected and it's supported and it's happy. So my right arm is relaxed, and I can connect with your right shoulder blade. And then as you breathe in, think of taking the shoulder blade down towards the ground. And breathe out and bring it back. So even though the intention of the movement is to move from the shoulder, once again, you might feel it more down into your hip or your back. It's going to show up wherever it needs to show up. That's part of the process with these practices. Sometimes we have surprises, but they're all revealing, and anytime we can reveal, it's a good thing. Just offer yourself loving kindness. And then if that feels okay, to keep your arm completely relaxed and feel yourself moving from your shoulder girdle into the spiral, then you can take your right hand to the base of the skull. And then you can as you bring the elbow forward, you'll feel a little bit more stretch in your upper back and compression in the collarbones. And as you open up on the inhale, you get that stretch through the collarbones as your shoulder blade comes down. And just rocking in and out of this nice and slowly, head and neck relaxed. Something that helps me when I feel like I'm getting too forceful is the breath. So you can breathe into your right lung. And as you breathe in, let your breath start the motion. So feel the buoyancy of the breath. Lift, it's like it's lifting your right shoulder blade and your elbow off the floor to come into the twist. And then as you empty, there's this collapsing down towards the ground. So focusing on that right lung and letting your lung lead you in and out of the rotation. So if that still feels good and you want to try the other arm version, your palms could come together, right arm long. And then inhale and reach through the arm. And exhale back. So without forcing it, we're working on getting the right shoulder blade down to the ground. But again, one side might be very different than the other. Oftentimes one side will come down and the other not so much. That's okay. So choose the position that feels best for you. And you're starting to feel these areas around the collarbone and the head of the arm bone right in that joint, right in your shoulder joint. That river of connective tissue and nerves going through there. Doing a few more in motion, just to open yourself up. And you'll know, so we've already probably know maybe one side, the shoulder blade got closer to the floor than the other, so we may end up propping the arm differently or choosing a different position for the arm. If the shoulder blade is closer to the ground, it might be that we can extend it this time in the hold. If it's further, then we may need to keep the hand on the body or even use a blanket to support the elbow. So we're going to know that before we try to hold the pose, because we can sense how far we're rolling into it comfortably. And then let's take the next one into the hold. So I'm going to sort of come over here so you can see how I would support it, because this is my tight side. And as I roll into it, I do not get my elbow or my shoulder blade to the ground. So this is uncomfortable. This is most definitely uncomfortable. I feel the pulling through the front of the shoulder. So I can either keep the arm extended, and big difference there. I can now allow all of the muscles around the head of the arm bone to relax. There's no more pulling in the joint. Or just keep the hand at the rib cage, and even keep the elbow on that blanket for a little extra cushy. So this is not a active stretch. Yin is a passive stretch, meaning we're letting the muscles relax and allowing the stretching to go more into that connective tissue. So if you stretch too far into the connective tissue, so into the joint, the muscles are going to turn on to protect them. Just to that right point where you feel supported, your breath is calm, and you're completely relaxed. Head and neck in a good position. And then we're going to go through those 3 marma points again. So the first one is the right on the collarbone, the apalapas. And if you walk your fingers down your collarbone or just your mind's eye, right to about the center and just below the collarbone, you can massage that area. Just feeling into that space. Massaging it if it feels good, or just noticing it with your mind's eye. And that's a really important point for circulation, particularly circulation down through the arms. So that's your apalapas. Breathe into that space, breathe into your right lung, the upper right lung in particular. So you should feel this sense of relaxation in those pectoral muscles, and they're grippers. They like to activate. As I said, that's part of the stress response, the fear response, as we tighten and shorten all of the muscles in the front of the body, but particularly the shoulders. It's part of our protection mechanism that we can't change. We're hardwired for it. But we can let them release in poses like this. And then if you come out more to right in, think of right in the shoulder joint. One's more towards the bottom of the shoulder joint by your armpit, and one a little further up is Kuksadara and Loitaksha. And you can just kind of use your fingers in that area. Again, responsible for circulation, but just the health overall of the arm. Loitaksha is important in any type of, if we have any sort of nerve pain or issues down that arm. Also with, we massage it for carpal tunnel syndrome, so just feeling that space. You can put pressure on it or just visualize it with your mind's eye. And I'm noticing for me now, when I first came into this, there was no ability to get the shoulder blade down to the ground. But after a little massage, after allowing the weight of my body to just fall, not forcing it, that shoulder blade is down. So you may see that your body naturally goes deeper into the posture without asking it to. And just recognize that. It's a little bit like a hologram. I was thinking is like holograms. Sometimes we try so hard to see it that we miss it. And the less we do and the more we just be, we find the pose, or the pose really finds us. It finds our body. Just undoing and being present in that right lung, particularly the front of the body around your collarbone. And check to see, you can visualize the space all the way from the collarbone and down through the palm of the hand. Is your hand relaxed? And take about 10 more breaths. Just feeling the spaciousness of the front of your chest. Letting those pectoral muscles go. When you're ready to come out, if your arm is extended, bend your arm first. Little by little, we slide our way out. You can take the arm back to the side body so it's fully supported, and then roll back onto your left side to come out. And then we're coming onto our back for our final pose, which is Savasana Relaxation. So I'm going to invite you to take that wherever you need to. Because we just did arms, it's going to be really important setting your arms up for that pose. So if you have blankets, I'm just going to show you a little. Of course, you can do your neck roll if you want to do a little roll of your blanket and put it under your head. But if I were there and I could do this for each of you, here's what I would do. And you can do it with blankets or pillows. This got all messed up. I'm going to blame it on Tanner, even though he's not in the video today. It's all Tanner's fault. So I just take 1 and 2, and they don't have to be as thick as these ones, or it could be 2 pillows off your bed, but 2 pillows, 2 blankets, and I'm going to make them kind of in the shape of my arms. This is really yummy. And I like the neck roll. You might lose me here. And I take those and I bring them all the way so that the blanket starts right underneath my upper shoulder. And I can let my arms just rest on them, but what feels even better is if you have the ability to like flap the end over and lift your wrist up a little higher than your shoulder. So this is a restorative thing we do. Then it's like all the blood is coming back. It's hard to do for yourself, that second part, but just even putting the blankets underneath you, wherever you want arms and legs. So lifting those arms off the ground and feeling that extra padding underneath. Again, I like the wrist lifted, but just putting those blankets or pillows underneath the backs of the shoulders. It might make you feel like your chest is a little more collapsed. So once you've done that, gently press the shoulder blades down and lift the collarbones to create space in the chest. So spread your collarbones and then fall back down and still feel how the arms are supported. And I invite you to breathe for a few moments into both the front and the back of the heart door. And coming into the heart door in the center of your body, breathe in, and it's like there's this overload of luscious, sweet energy coming into your heart. And send that overload through the collarbones, through your shoulder blades, all the way down your arms to the elbows and the wrists and into the palms of the hands. As you breathe out, just feel yourself from the fingertips back to the heart. Like if you were going to give yourself a hug. So we breathe in and we allow the heart energy to overflow into the shoulders and down the arms into the palms. And breathe out and just feel that space all the way from the fingers to the heart. If it helps to image your breath as a color or sound, you can feel it as a temperature. Just being present. So in the etheric body or in the energetic body, your arms are an extension of your heart. It's probably not too difficult to imagine when you think of all the things that we do for ourselves and others with our hands and our arms. And next time you breathe in and bring that awareness all the way down to the palms, just ask yourself if there's anything that you want to let go of today. What are you holding on to that just doesn't serve you? The saying goes that if somebody wanted to give you a bunch of money in your hand, well, you wouldn't be able to receive it if you're holding something right now, right? So you got to let go of what it is you're holding to so you can get what you want.
So let go of anything that isn't serving your heart. And then you can begin to wiggle your fingers. Just open and close your hands. Maybe rotate your wrists. Bend in and out of your elbows. Feel your elbow joints. The Kupara Marma. And then maybe rolling your shoulders. And any other movements you'd like to do to come out of this practice today. So on behalf of Tanner, I'm going to officially close it out while you take your time coming back up. I'm going to take my hands to my heart center, right, Tanner? We're going to try peace, joy, love, and light. Happy Wednesday, happy heart.